finally, we get to meet each other.
Yes, I'm a big fan of your guys' channel.
Yo, same with us.
Yeah, thank you. You guys do some good videos. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've been watching you since we were younger, obviously, with all the work you've done. But
thank you, I appreciate that.
So it's nice to meet you finally, and I can't wait to talk to you about New Caledonia.
Oh man, it was awesome.
I mean, I can't. When I saw that you went to New Caledonia, I was like, oh man. Like, you should have called me a week earlier. But,
meet me in LA, we're going.
Yeah. So, first of all,
pretty awesome.
For those of you that don't know you, how did you get into reptiles? What was the little spark that set everything
up? I can pinpoint it actually. It started when I was 9 years old, and I caught a garter snake in my front yard, and my parents let me keep it. And this is a story that I don't know that I've really told on my channel. But my parents let me keep it as long as it didn't get out. And so every single day I'd go home and check on the garter snake. And when you're a kid, you don't realize how escape artists these animals actually are. I had a screen lid on a 10-gallon, and that was it. It wasn't weighted down, it wasn't taped, whatever, just bam. So I come home from school and he's gone. And I'm like, that's the end of my, keeping the snake.
Mom's like, where's the snake?
Right, so my mom is upstairs vacuuming, and all of a sudden, I hear her scream, and I'm like, ah.
Don't tell me she vacuumed the snake.
Wait a minute. So I go up, and she starts screaming, I just saw your snake under the couch, da-da-da-da-da. And 9 years old, I'm, either smart enough or dumb enough to say, oh, well, that wasn't my snake. My snake is safe in it. No, it didn't work. So anyway, I asked her where the snake was, and she goes, I vacuumed it up. And it was like this canister vacuum. It wasn't like an upright vacuum. And it had the dust bag or the collecting bag in it. So I ripped the top of the vacuum cleaner off, and I ripped open the bag, and this huge mushroom cloud of dust went all over the room that my mom just cleaned, and the snake crawled out just totally fine. And still, again, I looked at the snake and I was like, Mom, this isn't my snake. This must have come from outside. It didn't matter. I mean, even if she bought it, that was the end of it. And then, so I wasn't allowed to keep snakes anymore. And so to make up for that, I just started reading everything that I possibly could on snakes.
That's funny, your story, because before I ever got any reptiles, I was just a little kid. And I would catch the brown and nose outside in Florida, and I put it in a shoebox. Yeah. And I put some leaves in there. Just let it,
Just let it suffocate to death.
Setup.
No hole.
Yeah, right. You don't realize that they need to breathe. Yeah. So, so it launched from there, and I've been obsessed all my life.
Yeah, man, it's like we say, our slogan is satisfy your gecko addiction, because it really is. Right. Growing up, all I used to watch was Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z, and I became literally like a Pokemon master. Like now I just have a room full of reptiles.
Yeah, you have a room full of real Pokemon now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's as you know, I mean, it's so rewarding. Just the different. There's like something for everybody.
Absolutely, there is.
Colors, patterns.
Yep.
Structure of the head. Like
it's never ending. That's what something like it's always
exactly
more,
right.
Or other animals, so it's always continuous. So it's always something you can always just keep doing, man.
Absolutely, and it never gets old, because in the reptile world, the reptile world is a niche. Exactly. But within the reptile world, there's niches within niches within niches. I'm a boa guy, but I only keep this particular kind of boas.
And even within the same species, as we see with the Cresteds or the gargoyles or Panther Chameleons. Oh, I love Panther Chameleons, but I only breed ambelovi.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I'll just clear something up. I'm not a boa guy. I just use that as an example. I'm a But see, and that's a perfect example, because I'm a ball python guy, but I only work with pied stuff. Ball python is a niche, but in that I'm also within the niche, and then I also.
But then even the pied, high white, low white,
like exactly right. What morph is? Yeah.
And that's what's so much fun about it,
Yep. So it is a niche within a niche, and that's what I love about this whole hobby. That it attracts people from all walks of life. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. If you're into reptiles, we are all a fraternity and a sorority, and that's what I love about this whole industry.
Absolutely.
So
So New Caledonia.
God, I wish I could go to that place. That is just that's a dream that I really wish I could get to.
How was that trip, man? And how long were you there for? It was amazing.
So we were there we were on the outer islands for 10 days, which was a lot. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but that was an extremely, physically and mentally taxing trip. Because
when you're used to America, you go to a third world country, you forget about
it. But it's what you can pack. You can't pack in water. We had to make our own water on the islands.
How do you make water, dude?
Actually, I don't think I actually filmed this, but we did have bottles of water with us to begin with. But you're dehydrated out there. You're breathing in all that salty air.
Oh, yeah.
You literally dig a hole and you put a piece of plastic over it, and the natural condensation of the earth comes up, hits the bottom of the plastic, and gets filtered into like a cup.
Wow.
And so you're literally doing that, and
the science project.
Right, and you're eating what you find out there. You have little, little bins of ramen noodles, and one of the guys that I was out there with educates the Australian Army, so they gave him K rations, which was just absolutely disgusting. But so you're hardly eating, you're hardly drinking, and you are sleeping on. Most of these islands, they're all sand, but they're all like ancient coral reefs that, because of plate tectonics, have risen above the surface, and trees then grow on them, and lizards find their way out to them. But it is the most uncomfortable night's sleep ever. So you're not only getting non-recuperative sleep, but you're getting none of it.
Yeah.
And you have to, for me as a filmmaker, I have to remember what t-shirt I was wearing and what part of the video from day to day.
Right.
I had to remember what SD card I had the Leachies on.
Yeah.
I had to remember what SD card I had, this
That's the part that you guys don't have to
right, and it is, and you have to literally keep track of 20 things at one time, and it's like a house of cards, so if you slip up and you forget a cable, or you forget to charge a battery, or you forget to do one of those little, itty-bitty things, but if you forget to do one of those things, the entire house of cards fall, and your entire video shoot just crumbles.
And all while being dehydrated,
tired, and
it's not like
malnourished.
Is a place that you could go, just go next month or whatever. That's a hard place.
And we started planning this trip a year ago.
Wow.
And then we started really, once it looked like it was actually going to happen, then the research started. And so the reason why we were able to find the terror skink, the reason why we were able to find, 98% of what we were looking for was because of the 6 months of research that we did before we went out there.
Of course. You can't just go there and expect, we're going to walk into the forest and there's going to be a leech.
Right. It's not like herping anywhere else where you can say, all right, I know this is in the area, we're going to flip a bunch of rocks and see them. It's not like that at all.
Wow.
So you need to really know what grove of trees leeches are hanging out on and what ones they're not hanging out on.
Right.
And it's the same way for, crested geckos, and it's the same way for a lot of the other skinks that we were finding there that really, aren't very well known.
Also, times of day, right? To know what animals to find out what times of the day.
Exactly right. So leachies will spend the entire day in tree hollows. So one of my plans was to spend a lot of time during the day just going around and finding the tree hollows and just shine your light in there and boom, there's leachies. So those, if you can find those tree hollows, they're pretty easy to find during the day. But at night, when filming is really hard, they're just crawling up and down the trees. I mean, the leachies were really common.
To find.
No, they were really common to find. The crested geckos were really easy to find.
Really?
I think I said hard to find. They're really easy to find at night. But the crested geckos were really easy to find at night as well.
And those, the cresteds are in the Isle of Pines, or we can't say?
Isle of Pines only. The original record was from Noumea, which is on Grand Tar.
Right.
But it was an erroneous record. So everybody, a couple of expeditions went there and looked around and couldn't find it and said, well, obviously this animal is extinct. And then from what I understand, there was a storm in 1994. Right. There was a German herpetologist there, and a crested gecko fell on the research center front in a storm. And this German herpetologist saw this crested gecko and really knew exactly what it was.
Was that Henkel?
That was Henkel, yep.
That was Henkel.
Yep, in 1994. So that kind of reintroduced it into back into science. So, but they were just looking for it in the wrong place.
Now, the crested geckos, in particular, where were you finding them during? Did you find any during the day?
Yeah.
Or were they hiding?
Yeah.
Where were they hanging out during the day?
So what they do is they hang out at about 3 meters off the ground to about 6 to maybe 9 meters off the ground.
Okay.
And what they'll do is they'll hunt, and they won't camouflage themselves in the foliage. That's where they usually spend the daytime to get out of the direct sunlight. But what they'll do at night is they'll come on the bare trees because they have a line of vision to whatever there is that they're hunting, and it just makes them very easy to see. So in one of my videos, the first crested gecko or the second crested gecko that we found, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was at night, and I zoomed in with the camera, and you can plainly see that this guy is just sitting on a totally bare branch. Totally easy to pick out.
Right.
But even at night, the Leachies, their camouflage is so acute that even at night,
cryptic,
right, exactly.
Just looking, it's going to be hard.
Right, and we weren't seeing them until they moved a lot of the time. So we probably walked by, maybe 2 or 3 for every one that we actually saw. And if they just stood still, we didn't see them. We probably just walked on by them. So, but yeah, it was absolutely amazing to get out there and actually see this stuff in the wild. And, crested geckos are obviously so popular. Leachies are obviously so popular. But no one has ever really gone out to New Caledonia to say, okay, what are they doing in the wild? Not from a scientific standpoint, but from our standpoint here in herpetoculture and the way that we're keeping them in captivity. And one of the things that, I want viewers to understand is that, that was what I filmed out there was kind of a day in the life. So when the thermometer said that it was 80 degrees, that's in the middle of the day, and that's just on that day. So, don't keep your Leachies or your Cresties at 80 degrees thinking that that's the way that they are in the wild. And besides, the wild Cresties are acclimated to what it is in the wild.
Exactly.
Our domestic geckos are acclimated to what it is in our domestic situation.
And these guys are very versatile. They're very tough.
That's right.
And
that's right.
You basically put two together in the right enclosure, and they're going to thrive. They're going to do just fine.
That's right.
Obviously, we want to keep it optimal, so it's great that somebody like you goes over there and finds out.
I also wanted to see what they were eating.
Yeah.
What behaviors they were doing that we don't see in captivity, which wasn't really different. They're still bouncing all over the place. They're still jumping off your hands. They're
Belly flopping.
Absolutely. They're still basically doing they're geckos, so they're going to be doing very similar what they're doing in the wild to what we see here. But just being there to see that firsthand, instead of read it in a paper that was written by somebody who was an academic, not a keeper, and that was the difference that I wanted to see when I was out there. So, yeah, it was amazing. But New Caledonia is one of the most expensive. Well, it is the most expensive country that I've ever gone to. A cheeseburger and a beer was $50 American. For us to go camping one night, it was $100 American. Just to pitch a tent in that campsite. Extremely expensive. We went way over budget. And we didn't go way over budget, but we did go over budget on this trip. And I budgeted a lot knowing that it was that expensive. But I'll give you an example. So when you fly into Noumea from Australia, you fly into the international airport, which is 50 miles away from the domestic airport. Why they didn't just put a domestic section in this huge airport, this huge international airport.
Yeah.
So you had to take a cab from one airport 50 miles to the other one, and that cab ride was $250 American. Yeah, it took us 50 minutes to get there. It was $250. So it is ridiculously expensive. And then the islands that we were on, like Moro and Bayonnaise, they're off limits. It's all tribal. And
that's what I was going to ask you about that. How do the people treat, a foreigner or?
Well, not terribly. I mean, they're extremely friendly and they're extremely outgoing and they are extremely inquisitive as to who you are and why you came and where you're from and what life is like where you're from. But they're very protective of their wildlife and they're very protective of their native lands. Their native lands are sacred. And if you just, slip a fisherman $500 American and say, hey, just take me out to that island, you're probably going to get out to that island, but then when the tribe sees you on their island,
You're on your own.
It's not going to be a good thing. It's not going to be good. So we took the time to actually find the tribal elders and explain to them why we wanted to go out to the island. And camping is absolutely forbidden on the islands unless you have this permission.
Wow.
Right. And we were, a lot of people, a lot of tribal members did come up to our camp. And they were like, what the hell are you doing here?
Oh man, that must be scary.
No, we just said, Chief Eliar told us that, gave us permission. He brought us out here. And then they're like, oh, you're the guys that are out here. So, once you have that permission, it swings through the community pretty fast.
We heard, I think when Philippe went, one of the times, there was like an altercation with some people there, and it got very scary very quickly.
That is very correct.
I wanted to ask you about that,
Right.
You never know if you're in the middle of nowhere. Who the hell?
Absolutely. There was a couple of times where I did not come back from this trip, and I'm not going to go into details, but it got pretty scary. And there was a couple of places, or a couple of times where I was like, "This is it. You're not leaving this island." Yeah. And so, but in the end, right. In the end, it was so worth it because we did see Leachies on every island that we went to, and we did see tons of Crested Geckos. And it got to the point where we would go out at night and we would see Crested Geckos, and I wouldn't even film them anymore because I had so much footage and another Crested Gecko. But the first one that you see, it's like your head explodes.
Did you see any albinos out there?
We did. Yep, I pocketed them. No. Can you imagine that? But then, not only is it dangerous to be out on the islands without that permission, but then Fish and Wildlife finds out you're out there, and then they come snooping
when you get
around.
back to the States.
No, right in New Caledonia. Right in New Caledonia. So then they come snooping around because it's actually illegal for you to take a Leachie from this island and bring it to this island.
Wow.
And
they
so,
care, man.
Oh, yes, they do. Yes, they do.
They care more about the people on Facebook.
Yeah. But so when we flew from, where were we? Yeah, so we flew from Isle of Pines back to Noumea on the main island on Grand Tar. Fish and Wildlife and the police pulled us off the plane. Made us go get our luggage, watched us pick up every single item of luggage, and then brought us to a little room, and literally went through every single piece of our luggage, felt us up, made sure that we didn't have anything taped to us, undid all of our bedrolls, literally went through everything with a fine-tooth comb. And if we had bags of Leachies, if we had bags of whatever, I'd be in jail right now. My whole crowd would be in jail right now. So, and when that happens, there's a guy that stands aside, and he watches your body language. Because if you're like, oh shit, they know you're guilty.
Yeah.
So we just stood there and went, do. I mean, we had nothing. We knew that, whatever. And so we saw this guy on his walkie-talkie talking to the other guys, and we just saw this guy going like this. And we're like, either we're the best actors in the world or no. But I mean, it really kind of pissed us off because they treated us like we were criminals right off the bat.
Yeah.
They didn't say, hey, this is this is something that we have to do. Sorry about this. They immediately pulled us off the plane and treated us like we were criminals, and that really kind of upset me. So anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well. How is did you find what they were eating in the wild cresteds, gargoyle? Well, not gargoyles.
No, we didn't see gargoyles. We did a little. One of the Leachies took a dump, and we saw seeds, and that's in one of my videos. And we saw seeds, and I kind of took a stick and moved it around to see if there was any like insect matter.
Right.
And on that island, they were only eating fruit at that time of year. So this was March, but we never really. We took samples, and I'm waiting to find out what it was. But on the spot, we had no idea what it was.
What I've heard also is that it could be seasonal. Like some seasons for the fruits, and then there'll be more insects in another season.
Because just like anywhere else in the world, fruit will bloom at certain times of year, and when it does, that's what's available, and that's what the lizards want.
So one of the things I really wanted to know is, did you see any of the Leachies or Cresteds basking in the day, taking in some UV? Because that is a pretty heavily debated topic, whether they do need UVB or not.
It is. We only got to spend 10 days out there. And between filming what I needed to film for my channel and, we weren't out there on a scientific mission. So, going out there and finding the answer specifically to that is not really the purpose of why we went out there, but I did look for it. And I did look for, like I said, Leachies are, they spend most of the day in these tree hollows. Are they taking advantage of UV in those tree hollows? Of course, ultraviolet radiation is all around, so yeah, I'm sure that they're being exposed to it in these tree hollows. But with crested geckos, we found them during the day lower on the trees, under foliage. So I don't know if they were, sleeping during the daytime under there. But again, even if you are outside during the day, whether you're sleeping, nocturnal, whatever, you are still being exposed to ultraviolet radiation. So whether they were out basking and taking full advantage of that, did not see that. But so the debate will still go on.
What we is talk about the observations.
That's right.
See how we could keep them better in captivity.
Right.
Obviously, for years, we have kept cresteds and gargoyles and all these New Caledonian species without UV.
And generations, too, not just like those animals for years, like just multiple generations.
So, I think the diet, when we dust the calcium with the with the D3, I know there's a lot of people doing experiments adding just specifically even to a null species, not giving any UV and just dusting it with D3, the calcium, and they never saw any side effects. No, that's not to say it's going to replace it completely, but we do need to do some of these things just to find out, to know how we could improve our
like the blue-tongued skinks, the way a lot of breeders, including myself, keep the blue-tongued skinks, it's without UVB. You keep them in rack system similar to ball python.
Exactly.
And generations, and you don't really see any side effects at all with, as long as they're getting in their diet, the D3, it doesn't seem like there isn't any negative side effects. I mean, if you want to give your UVB, go ahead, man. There's no,
it's not going
to hurt them. No. But here's the thing. You go on these gecko groups on Facebook or wherever you go to these gecko groups, and there's always somebody who has such a strong opinion about this is what to do.
Yeah, I see.
You know what?
You're watching.
I'm telling you, nobody knows. Is an expert.
Exactly.
Nobody is an expert, and what works for one person in, let's say, Phoenix, Arizona, in that humidity, in that climate, in that whatever, is not going to work for somebody living in New Hampshire.
Yep.
Florida.
And not even
Florida. Right. So nobody's an expert. Yeah. And part of keeping these guys and breeding these guys and having these guys thrive in captivity is trial and error. So what works for one person, share that, but keep in mind, nobody's an expert. No matter how long you've been breeding these guys, no one's an expert.
And there's always like things you can do to make them better. Like, for example, I just started experimenting with some cooler climate chameleons, like carpet chameleons and Jackson's chameleons, keeping them outside in Florida, and I see them basking in the day all day. Right. So it's, it's like you're saying, that's a part of it. You got to experiment to see how you can better your husbandry.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why with my videos, I want to go to places in the wild, because I know that there is so much misinformation in our hobby, absolutely. So much. And the problem with doing that is that my videos are a day in the life of that animal in the wild.
Right.
And there's, I can't take 6 months and go out there and study them. I would die. But and it'd be way too expensive and all those sorts of things. But I can get a snapshot of what they're doing, and out of that snapshot we can say, all right, so this is kind of on the fence. Right.
And start putting pieces together.
That's exactly it. And it's another puzzle piece to the overall puzzle of what we're dealing with our geckos and animals in captivity. So that's what I'm going to wind up doing. All of my trips are going to be very specific to the animals that I can find in the wild that are popular in captivity. And with this one in New Caledonia, obviously the two most, well-kept geckos in herpticulture are found there. Right. So I'm going to look into India for leopard geckos, because India is the only place in their range that I will go to. I really don't think that going into Pakistan or Afghanistan would be a very good idea Hi, I'm an American.
Not right now.
Yeah. So India is the only place that I could probably find to go there, and then we're planning a trip to Ghana for ball pythons in the wild.
It's so cool.
You know, there's a debate over, you know, you're keeping them in these small racks.
Right.
Well, from what I understand, ball pythons are going into these termite mounds and wedging themselves in and not moving.
That's something.
It's smaller than a rack, so I want to, you know, look
That's
into
something I really like to point out, especially because some people, I understand. Listen, the first impression, if you don't know anything about a reptile, is like you see it in a tub
with paper towel substrate,
and then you're like, what are you doing to this animal?
But these animals truly just want their basic requirements met, and they're just grateful that they're no predators.
Exactly right.
What I love about your video is when you took that wild crested gecko, it was tailless, like But you know, people see that in here, and they want fat geckos, and that's not always the best way to keep your
not
gecko.
always.
Not at all.
In case in point, so all the geckos that we found were really thin.
Yeah.
To the point where if I would have taken a picture of those geckos and put it on a forum and said, "Hey, look at my gecko," there would have been 4 million responses of people saying, you know, "I'm going to break into your house and liberate your geckos." And in all of this, and then, you know, that's how they look in the wild.
Exactly. That's what people need to understand.
Right.
Like, specifically with the geckos, even let's say you're breeding, you don't want fat females.
Right.
You want them, you know, nice and thick, normal. But once they start getting too fat, it's gonna, just like people, it's gonna shorten off their lifespan, and they're not gonna produce as well.
And the idea is that a fat female will have better eggs.
No.
Absolutely false.
Wrong.
Absolutely false.
Same with boas. Same thing with anything.
Right. Yeah. So when I was in Thailand, we were finding retics. We were finding 15-foot retics that were, in our standards, emaciated. But that's how they look in the wild. That's a normal looking animal.
Hard
you know,
life out there.
Right. They're not these huge, you know, massive, obese, you know, retics that we see so often in our industry, and it's hard to get that idea through because we have this idea that a fat lizard is a happy lizard.
Right.
No, it's not.
Exactly.
A fat lizard is not necessarily a well taken care of lizard.
Exactly.
So
I think that's one of the main points that people need to know, because you just tend to think, you know, how do I get that question all the time, how do I get my lizard fat? I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
You don't want to get it fat.
Right,
you
right.
Just let it grow on its own, you know.
That's right.
And the lizard on its by itself, if it's healthy, it's not going to starve itself to death.
Right.
And it's not going to, you know, it's not going to get obese unless you're constantly providing food in an enclosure this size, you know. So you gotta. The metabolism for reptiles is a lot different than us.
Absolutely it is. And if you want to get your gecko really fat, have it get married to one of your other geckos.
Yeah.
I didn't say that, no. Stop with the hate mail.
Triggered.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Comments.
That's right. That Dav Kaufman is insensitive.
So Dave, what was the best? I have a feeling I know what you're gonna say, but what was the best experience about New Caledonia? What was like?
Oh boy!
And you can't say the food because we know it's not.
It was not the food. It was absolutely.
But how does Crested Gecko taste?
Bones get caught in your teeth. It's awful. The greatest moment. Oh, it had to be the terror skink.
I know it. Yeah.
Absolutely. But you know, finding that first crested gecko was. There's nothing really that I can think of that compares to that excitement level and that feeling of relief that, you know, we went and as, you know, as somebody with a YouTube channel and somebody who was sponsored, you know, I go to my sponsors and I say, hey, this is what I want to do. And of course they flip the bill for it. And then the pressure is so great for you to produce, and you are trying to control something that is uncontrollable. And so the entire time that I was on the plane on the way to Australia, and then met my friends from all over the world, and we flew to Noumea, and then the flight from Noumea down to the Isle of Pines, and then all the time on the Isle of Pines before we found that first crested gecko, I was popping Tums like M&Ms because my stomach was on fire, that I was so nervous that I had just spent literally thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars getting there.
We were crazy.
And I'm
to go see some lizards.
right, and I might not see the gecko that I came to see, and therefore I have no video.
Yeah.
And it was so much pressure that it literally.
But
it was not comfortable.
You surpassed
right,
expectations, man.
And then, but when you see that first crested gecko, and not only, that feeling of, my God, I'm seeing a crested gecko in the wild, but that also feeling of relief that I've got a video. Yeah, all this money now was just paid off.
I want to feel that.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean I think that was more than really the terror skink because of what was at stake and how much financial investment we made in this
the
trip.
Pressure at that point just falls.
Right. And then if I came back to my sponsors and say, look, we gave it our all, but we didn't find any crested geckos out there. I have no videos. Are they going to be so apt to write a check the next year for my channel?
Yeah.
So, and that, of course they would, but that's what kind of goes through your mind. You want to deliver and make the people that are not only my fans, but my sponsors as well. I don't want to let anybody down.
Yeah.
And so, when you find, to basically answer your question now, to make a long story short, which is impossible because I just, talked for 10 minutes, but, but yeah, the terror skink was the most amazing thing that we found out there. But aside from that, it was the crested geckos and it was the leachies, knowing full well. But knowing that I've got a video now. Yeah. That I've got a video that isn't, hey, we're going out there and didn't find anything.
Yeah. So, no, it's special, man. Like I tell you, when I saw that pop on my feed, I was like, what? Like, it was incredible, man. Yeah. And Dave, brother, I appreciate your time.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for doing my video.
Yeah.
And
sure.
I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, plug.
So I'm over here filming with these guys for my channel, Dav Kaufman's Reptile Adventures. You're going to put a link, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. I have a link to their channel. They have a link to my channel. Subscribe to all of us.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. As always, follow us, all of us, on Instagram, Facebook.
Yep.
YouTube, absolutely.
Snapchat, Tinder. You're on Tinder.
Guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this conversation we had. I mean, we learned a lot just from talking to you.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
So I appreciate your time, brother. And till next time.
Rattle on.
Rattle on, man.
All right. Thanks, guys.